A single nozzle on your shower head is spraying water sideways, soaking your bathroom floor instead of you, while the rest of the holes are completely choked shut by a crust that looks like dried bone. You grab a stiff bristled plastic brush, scrub until your wrist aches, and only manage to scratch the chrome finish while the white buildup remains completely untouched. The municipal water report says your tap water is perfectly safe to drink, yet this rock-hard substance is slowly suffocating your plumbing from the inside out. Inside your faucet assembly sits a tiny, fragile elastomeric seal that will completely disintegrate if it comes into contact with the wrong chemical, yet the commercial descaling products sold at every hardware store contain exactly this compound. How do we dissolve this mineral armor without destroying that critical hidden seal? We will get to that specific danger, but first, we have to look at why physical force is completely useless against this buildup. The chalky crust clogging your fixtures is calcium carbonate, essentially the same material that forms limestone caves and seashells. When hard water, which is loaded with dissolved calcium and magnesium ions, heats up or evaporates, these minerals undergo a chemical transition. They precipitate out of the liquid state and lock together in a tight, crystalline lattice. This is not a layer of dirt sitting on top of your metal faucet. It is a geological formation that has chemically bonded to the surface. When you attack this crust with a wire brush, a green scouring pad, or a plastic scraper, you are trying to physically break apart a crystalline structure that has a Mohs hardness rating similar to copper. The brass or plastic beneath your faucet's shiny outer plating is actually softer than the mineral deposit itself. Every stroke of an abrasive pad shears microscopic layers off your expensive brushed nickel or matte black finish long before it makes a dent in the calcium. Even worse, physical scrubbing pushes tiny fragments of the broken mineral crust deeper into the aerator's fine mesh screen, packing it like wet cement until the water pressure drops to a miserable trickle. To clear this restriction, you do not need more muscle. You need to understand the chemical vulnerability of the crystal itself, because while calcium carbonate is incredibly resistant to physical impact, its molecular bonds are highly unstable when exposed to a specific, mild acidic environment. To understand why that acid works, you first have to see how clear tap water transforms into dense mineral armor inside your plumbing. It starts miles away, long before the water ever reaches your main shutoff valve. Rain absorbs carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, turning slightly acidic as it falls through the sky. As that rain filters through underground layers of limestone and chalk, it dissolves calcium and magnesium, carrying them along in a soluble state known as calcium bicarbonate. At this stage, you cannot see it or feel it. The water running through your municipal supply line carries millions of dissolved microscopic rock building blocks, completely balanced and invisible in solution. The transformation from liquid solution to solid rock happens the moment that water encounters heat or a drop in pressure inside your home. Inside your water heater, dishwasher, or kitchen aerator, heat drives off the dissolved carbon dioxide gas. The chemical balance instantly collapses. Without that dissolved gas holding the mixture together, the liquid calcium bicarbonate breaks down into water, gas, and an insoluble crystalline byproduct, calcium carbonate. These microscopic crystals do not wash harmlessly down the drain. They possess a natural electrostatic charge that forces them to stick aggressively to copper, brass, rubber, and plastic. Layer by layer, atom by atom, they lock together in a dense matrix that mirrors the exact chemical structure of natural marble. Most homeowners assume that running boiling hot water down a slow fixture will loosen things up. With mineral scale, that logic backfires completely. The solubility of calcium carbonate works backward compared to sugar or salt. While sugar dissolves faster in warm water, calcium carbonate precipitates out faster as temperatures rise. For every 10 degrees Celsius increase in water temperature, the rate of mineral crystallization nearly doubles. If you turn your water heater up to 140 degrees Fahrenheit, you are actively supercharging the speed at which rock forms on the heating elements. A layer of scale just 1/16 of an inch thick acts like solid thermal insulation, dropping heat transfer efficiency by 24% and causing electric elements to overheat and burn out years ahead of schedule. Trying to scrape this crust away with wire brushes or harsh industrial drain cleaners usually scratches the internal plating of your faucets, creating millions of tiny microscopic ridges that give the next wave of minerals an even stronger anchor. You cannot defeat a chemical bond with brute mechanical force without ruining your fixtures. To erase stone without removing a single pipe, you have to reverse the precise thermodynamic reaction that built it, using a single, safe household liquid that costs less than $1. That liquid isn't the blue gel you buy in a trigger bottle at the supermarket. If you flip over a standard $8 bottle of commercial limescale remover, the active ingredient list reveals a quiet secret. You are paying for 90% water, 3% ethoxylated alcohol surfactants designed purely to make the liquid foam for visual effect, artificial fragrances to cover the harsh chemical smell, and less than 4% actual organic acid. Those added surfactants are actually your enemy here. They create a slippery, oily barrier over the mineral crust, preventing the hydrogen ions from reaching the calcium carbonate crystal lattice. You end up wiping away synthetic blue foam while 90% of the mineral scale stays locked to your fixture. To shatter that bond instantly, you need pure anhydrous citric acid powder, the exact same food-grade compound found in citrus fruit, available in bulk for less than $3 a pound. When you mix 50 grams, or roughly 2 packed tablespoons, of pure citric acid into 500 milliliters of tap water heated to exactly 50 degrees Celsius, something remarkable happens at the molecular level. Citric acid is a triprotic acid, meaning each individual molecule donates 3 distinct hydrogen ions. These ions aggressively attack the insoluble calcium carbonate, converting it into water-soluble calcium citrate, carbon dioxide gas, and pure water. At 50 degrees Celsius, the kinetic energy of the solution doubles the reaction rate compared to room temperature liquid, dissolving a millimeter-thick layer of solid crust in under 12 minutes without any scrubbing. Yet there is a hidden danger here that commercial brands rely on to keep you buying their weaker, padded products. Concentrated citric acid is so aggressively effective at chelating heavy metals that leaving this exact warm solution on chrome-plated zinc or unsealed brass for longer than 18 minutes causes localized galvanic corrosion. The solution eats straight through microscopic pinholes in the outer chrome layer, stripping the nickel undercoating beneath and turning a high-end bathroom faucet permanently black and pitted. Furthermore, applying this formula to marble, travertine, or natural limestone will permanently dull and etch the surface within 90 seconds, because natural stone is made of the very same calcium carbonate as the limescale you are trying to melt. Understanding those physical boundary limits is critical, but applying the solution brings its own physics nightmare. Vertical surfaces like glass shower doors and arched faucet necks. Liquid runs off into the drain in 3 seconds, stopping the chemical reaction long before the 12-minute threshold is ever reached. Bleach is the most common impulse buy for a crusty faucet, but chemically, it is a non-starter for mineral deposits. Sodium hypochlorite is a powerful base with a pH hovering around 11 or 12. Limescale is calcium carbonate. To dissolve a base-heavy mineral, you need an acid, not another base. Pouring bleach on limescale is like trying to put out a fire with gasoline that has been dyed blue. It might change the color of the crust to a bright, sterile white, giving the illusion of cleanliness, but the physical structure of the scale remains rock hard and fully bonded to the metal. Worse, bleach is a voracious oxidizer. When it sits on a chrome finish, it begins a process called pitting. It finds microscopic pores in the decorative chrome layer and attacks the copper or nickel substrate beneath. You will see this as tiny black dots that no amount of polishing can remove because the metal itself has been eaten away from the inside out. Then there are the heavy hitters like sulfamic acid, often found in those industrial-strength jugs at the hardware store. While it does dissolve calcium, it treats your faucet's internal components with the same aggression. Inside every modern faucet is a series of nitrile or EPDM rubber O-rings that maintain the watertight seal. Sulfamic acid is particularly cruel to these elastomers. It strips away the plasticizers that keep the rubber supple, turning a flexible ring into a brittle, glass-like circle that cracks the moment you turn the handle. Once that seal is compromised, water begins to weep into the cabinet below, often unnoticed until the particle board base of your vanity has swollen and molded beyond repair. You are not just cleaning a faucet, you are accelerating its mechanical failure. But here is the contradiction that catches most homeowners off guard. Many products marketed specifically as faucet-safe actually contain phosphoric acid, which manufacturers claim is gentle enough for daily use. In reality, if your water has a high iron content, which is common in many suburban wells, that phosphoric acid reacts with the iron to create an insoluble ferric phosphate coating. You end up with a new, grayish-purple stain that is even harder to remove than the original white limescale. This creates a cycle where you buy more chemicals to fix the damage caused by the first bottle, unknowingly stripping the protective clear coat off your expensive fixtures. Most people assume the dullness they see after cleaning is just age, but it is actually a chemical burn. The stakes go higher when you realize that these corrosive reactions do not stop when you rinse the surface. Acidic residues trap themselves in the threads of the aerator and the crevices of the handle assembly, quietly eating through the brass body of the faucet over several weeks. A $200 faucet can be structurally compromised by a $10 bottle of pro-grade cleaner in a single afternoon. If the goal is to dissolve the minerals without turning the plumbing into a ticking time bomb of leaks and pitted metal, we have to look at the molecular weight of the acids we choose. The industry standard for toughness is actually the very thing that ensures you will be calling a plumber for a full replacement within 2 years. To bypass this destruction, we need to manipulate the physical state of a much weaker, safer acid that costs less than a single local phone call. Anhydrous citric acid crystals arrive as a dry, shelf-stable powder that feels like coarse sand between your fingers. To turn this inert pile of dust into a limescale-eating solvent, we measure exactly 50 grams, roughly 3 level tablespoons, and introduce it to 500 milliliters of tap water. At room temperature, this mixture is underwhelming. It will eventually eat through a crust of calcium, but it takes hours, often leaving behind a sticky residue that requires its own cleaning cycle. The secret to the instant dissolution used in professional descaling rigs isn't a stronger chemical. It's a specific thermal window. When you raise the temperature of this solution to exactly 60 degrees Celsius, the molecular behavior shifts. Heat acts as a kinetic hammer, vibrating the citric acid molecules until they can wedge themselves into the tight crystalline structure of the limescale. At 60 degrees, the reaction rate triples. You can actually hear the difference, a faint, aggressive fizzing as the solid rock turns into water-soluble calcium citrate. However, there is a physical limit to this efficiency that most DIY guides ignore. and crossing it turns your cleaning solution into a permanent adhesive. If the water reaches 85 degrees or hits a rolling boil, the chemistry backfires. High heat causes the water to evaporate at the point of contact, concentrating the acid until it precipitates out as a hard, white citrate crust that is arguably more difficult to remove than the original limescale. I have seen homeowners boil their kettles with heavy concentrations of acid only to find the heating element fused into a solid block of white ceramic-like material. It's a chemical trap. You aren't just looking for hot. You are looking for the precise moment the water begins to steam but hasn't yet started to simmer. This 60-degree threshold is high enough to break the mineral bonds, but low enough to keep the rubber O-rings and silicone gaskets in your taps from softening or warping. If you exceed this, the very seals designed to keep your house dry will begin to degrade, turning a $1 fix into a $300 emergency plumbing call. We have to balance the aggression of the acid against the structural integrity of the metal it's sitting on. This specific ratio of 1:10, acid to water, is the maximum saturation point where the liquid remains thin enough to penetrate the microscopic pores of the scale. Any thicker, and the solution becomes a syrup that sits on the surface without soaking in. Any thinner, and the hydrogen ions are spread too far apart to sustain a continuous reaction. When the 60-degree liquid hits the scale, it begins a process called chelation. Instead of just burning the surface, the acid molecules wrap around the individual calcium ions like a claw, pulling them away from the plumbing and suspending them in the water. This prevents the minerals from simply redepositing further down the pipe. But even with the perfect ratio and the exact temperature, the method fails instantly if you apply it to the wrong type of metal finish. Chrome survives this. Matte black dies. If your faucet has a living finish or a PVD coating, the acid will bypass the surface and tunnel underneath the protective layer, causing the entire outer shell to flake off in your hands. Assuming you have a standard chrome or stainless steel fixture, the challenge shifts from chemistry to physics. Liquid cannot fight gravity. A spray bottle only delivers a fleeting mist that slides into the sink before it can penetrate the rock-hard layers of calcium carbonate. You need a way to pin the acid against the vertical surface for a sustained attack. Take a high-absorbency paper towel and soak it in a mixture of 1 cup white vinegar and 2 tablespoons of lemon juice, heated to exactly 130 degrees Fahrenheit. The heat accelerates the molecular vibration, allowing the acid to work 3 times faster than it would at room temperature. Wrap the dripping towel around the faucet neck, overlapping the edges to create a seal. Squeeze the towel firmly against the metal until the liquid pools in the crevices. This compression forces the solution into the porous structure of the limescale, saturating the buildup from the outside in. Secure the entire wrap with 3 or 4 thick rubber bands to ensure no part of the metal is exposed to the air. This is where the standard advice fails. Most guides tell you to leave this wrap on overnight, but that is a recipe for a flooded bathroom. While the acid is busy dissolving the minerals on the outside, it is also being pulled upward by capillary action into the internal valve seat. If your faucet uses budget-grade nitrile O-rings rather than high-density EPDM rubber, the acid will cause the seals to swell and eventually crack. You aren't just cleaning a stain. You are testing the structural integrity of every internal component. If the water in your area has a high iron content, the reaction can also trigger a flash rusting effect on the internal spring tensioners, potentially seizing the handle in place before the 40-minute timer even goes off. Keep a close eye on the color of the paper towel as it sits. If you notice any hint of blue or green bleeding into the white paper, the acid has found a pinhole in the plating and is currently dissolving the brass body of the faucet. This is the point of no return. You have exactly 12 minutes of safe contact time before the chemical reaction begins to compromise the actual metal. Watch for a slight bubbling under the surface of the towel. That is the carbon dioxide gas escaping as the calcium carbonate transforms into liquid calcium acetate. Once that bubbling slows down, the acid is spent, and the remaining sludge is ready for the high-pressure rinse that determines whether the finish underneath survived the ordeal. Surface cleaning is vanity. Clearing the internals is where the actual utility of your plumbing returns. Take the faucet aerator, that tiny mesh screen at the tip of the spout. If the water stream looks frayed or split, the screen is choked with white, stony grit. Unscrew it by hand if possible. But if it's seized, wrap a thick rubber band around the chrome to give your pliers grip without scarring the finish. Drop the disassembled pieces into a small glass containing 2 tablespoons of anhydrous citric acid dissolved in 8 ounces of water heated to precisely 140 degrees Fahrenheit. At this temperature, the acid molecules move with enough kinetic energy to shear through the calcium carbonate bonds in minutes rather than hours. You will see an immediate, aggressive effervescence as carbon dioxide gas is released from the stone. Shower heads present a different challenge because the buildup often hides inside the flexible rubber nozzles. While the exterior might look polished, the internal channels are often narrowed to the diameter of a needle, forcing the pump to work harder and killing your water pressure. Submerge the entire head in the same citric solution, but here is where the $1 trick hits a wall. If your fixtures are modern oil-rubbed bronze or certain brushed gold finishes, this acid bath is a gamble. Many of these aren't solid metal or even electroplated. They are PVD coatings or simple organic lacquers that the acid can delaminate. If the concentration is too high or the soak too long, you risk leaving the fixture with a peeling, mottled surface that no amount of polishing can recover. You have to test a spot on the back of the flange first, because once that finish bubbles, the fixture is functionally trash. The most neglected site for this treatment is the toilet rim jets, those small holes tucked under the porcelain lip that provide the swirl for the flush. When these clog, the bowl doesn't clear properly, leading many to believe they have a massive sewer blockage when they actually just have 2 cents worth of rock in a hole. Use a small inspection mirror to see the state of those jets. If they look like plugged up pores, you'll need a specialized delivery method to get the acid to stay in place long enough to bite. Tucking saturated paper towels into that rim channel creates a poultice that holds the chemical against the gravity-defying buildup, slowly eating away at the crust that prevents a clean siphon. Wait 40 minutes, remove the towels, and use a stiff nylon brush to flick away the softened remains. The sound of the water changing from a restricted hiss to a full-throated roar is the first sign that the internal architecture is finally clear. However, the most stubborn blockages don't live in the fixtures themselves, but in the one place most homeowners are terrified to touch. Deep inside the brass shutoff valve body and the internal threads of your copper supply lines, that acid has done its job dissolving the calcium carbonate. But if you just run plain tap water through the system and call it a day, you have unwittingly started a chemical clock that destroys metal. Tap water alone does not eliminate microscopic pockets of low pH acid trapped inside tiny pits, threads, and silicone washers. When residual acid with a pH below 3 stays in contact with yellow brass, which is an alloy of copper and zinc, it causes desinsification. The acid selectively leaches zinc right out of the metal matrix, leaving behind a spongy, brittle structure of pure copper that can snap under normal city water pressure. To halt this immediately, you need a precise alkaline neutralization rinse. Mix exactly 2 tablespoons of standard sodium bicarbonate, plain baking soda, into 4 cups of warm water at roughly 110 degrees Fahrenheit. Do not use cold water. Warm water lowers the viscosity and allows the solution to penetrate deep into fine screw threads and narrow valve seats. Pour or pump this mild pH 8.3 solution through the flushed fixture, or submerge the entire disassembled valve assembly for 3 minutes. You will hear a soft hiss and see microscopic bubbles form. That is the sodium bicarbonate reacting instantly with the trapped acid ions, producing harmless water, dissolved salts, and carbon dioxide gas. The moment that effervescence stops, the chemical destruction of your plumbing ceases. Here is the critical complication that catches almost everyone off guard. Most people assume that flushing with plenty of fresh water neutralizes acid by dilution. In reality, introducing pure tap water to an acidic brass surface creates an active galvanic cell. The diluted acid, combined with dissolved oxygen in municipal water, speeds up pitting corrosion by over 300% during the first 20 minutes of exposure. That is why fixtures washed with plain water often start weeping around the packing nut a week later, turning a simple maintenance routine into an emergency wall teardown. Once the bubbling stops, reinstall the internal cartridge using a light coating of food-grade silicone grease on the rubber O-rings. Never use petroleum jelly, which swells standard nitrile seals within 48 hours. Turn the main water supply back on full draft. The rush of water will flush out the loose, neutralized salts and any remaining microscopic lime slurry, instantly restoring the factory-rated 2.2 gallons per minute flow rate without a single drop leaking through weakened metal threads. Now that the scale is fully dissolved, the metal is chemically stabilized, and your water pressure is completely restored, one final vulnerability remains. Unless you apply a single microscopic barrier layer to the clean surface right now, mineral ions will begin recrystallizing on that bare metal before your next shower. The dial on your water heater is likely sitting at a factory standard 60 degrees Celsius, and that specific number is the primary reason your showerhead is failing. At 60 degrees, the solubility of calcium carbonate in your water drops off a cliff. This happens because heat forces dissolved carbon dioxide out of the water. As that gas escapes, the water's pH rises, and the minerals, which were perfectly stable at room temperature, instantly solidify into the white, jagged crust you've been fighting. You are essentially running a rock factory in your basement. Lowering that dial to 55 degrees Celsius changes the fundamental physics of your plumbing. This 5-degree shift is the forever part of the solution because it keeps the minerals in a liquid state. At 55 degrees, the rate of scale accumulation is roughly 70% lower than at 65. You still get a hot shower, but you stop the chemical divorce between the water and the calcium. Most plumbing companies will never suggest this because scale is a primary driver for water heater replacements. When a layer of scale just 3 millimeters thick builds up on the internal heating elements, it acts as an insulator.